Greetings, everyone, and welcome to Back to Ashes. My name is Phoenix. Thank you to all the elite members of the channel. I appreciate you and what you do for the channel and me. Thank you so much. With that being said, it is now time to go back to ashes. For once we arise from the ashes, we are a bigger, brighter, stronger, and a happier person every day. Sit back, relax, kick back, grab a snack, or tuck in and get warm, and prepare for your dose of vocal melatonin entitled True Scary Stories. Right after this intro, there will be an ad. I'll read the first story, there will be an ad. And after that, there will be no more ads within this video. I don't know why my cousin Zach kept that Ouija board buried like a shameful secret beneath a heap of musty jackets in the back of his closet. It was as if he'd forgotten it existed, or maybe he wanted to forget. I found it during a summer visit, my parents having ditched me at my aunt and uncle's for a weekend to escape their own lives. I was rummaging through Zach's closet, bored out of my mind, when my fingers brushed against something cold and smooth. A wooden box, heavier than it looked. I yanked it free, the jackets tumbling around me like a collapsing shroud. And there it was, a Ouija board, its lacquered surface gleaming faintly in the dim light, yellow letters staring up at me like unblinking eyes. My skin goosebumped, a shiver crawling up my spine that I couldn't explain. It felt like holding something alive, something that pulsed with a quiet, malevolent intent. "Is this real?" I whispered, clutching it like some cursed relic. Zach barely glanced up from his phone, sprawled on his bed. "Yeah, I guess. Had it for a while. Doesn't work, though. Tried it once or twice. Nothing happened." His voice was flat, dismissive, but there was a flicker in his eyes, a shadow that made me wonder if he was lying. My aunt overheard from the hallway and poked her head in, her face twisting into a grimace. "Take it," she said, her voice sharp. "I hate that thing in my house." Her words only made the board feel heavier in my hands, more dangerous, like it was something forbidden, something that didn't belong in the light. When I got home, I couldn't wait to show my friends. We gathered in my basement, the air thick with the smell of damp concrete and teenage curiosity. The board sat between us, its presence commanding, almost mocking, our nervous giggles. We whispered about ghosts, spirits, demons, things we didn't understand but craved to touch, to taste the edge of the unknown. It was a game at first, a thrill to chase in the long, sticky summer nights. We dragged the board to abandoned places, crumbling houses with broken windows, the shadowed edges of the woods, the rusted skeleton of an old train yard behind Sam's place. We'd ask the same tired questions. "Is there anyone there? Can you give us a sign?" Most times nothing happened, but sometimes the planchette would twitch under our fingers, a movement so slight it could have been our own nerves betraying us. Sometimes a cold breath of air would slither through the group, coiling around us like a warning. And sometimes the night felt wrong, heavy, like we were being watched by something just out of sight. Then there was Brian. Brian wasn't like the rest of us, where we treated the board like a toy, a spooky diversion. He treated it like a god. His eyes would light up when we pulled it out, his fingers lingering too long on the planchette, like he was caressing something precious. He didn't just like the board. He needed it, craved it with a hunger that made my stomach twist. I should have seen it then, the way his obsession grew, the way it started to consume him. But I was too caught up in the thrill, too eager to play with the unknown. At first, it was almost funny, the way Brian leaned into it. He'd make a show of it, hamming it up like some discount seance leader. His voice low and dramatic as we gathered in the woods after school. The sun would sink below the trees, casting long, jagged shadows that seemed to creep closer with every question we asked. We'd balance the board on someone's knees, our fingers barely touching the planchette, and Brian would lead the charge. Is anyone here? What's your name? How did you die? Most of the time, it felt like we were moving the planchette ourselves, feeding off each other's energy, laughing at our own fear. But every so often, the board would answer in ways that didn't make sense. It would spell out names we didn't know. Jacob, who drowned in the river 20 years ago. Missy, who only ever spelled help me in frantic loops. Richard, who claimed he was murdered but wouldn't say by whom. We started keeping a list, our spirits scribbled in a notebook, like some grim guest book. It felt real, too real, and yet we kept going, drawn to the edge of something we couldn't name. Brian changed first. He stopped being one of us, stopped laughing, stopped joking. He was always the first to arrive, the last to leave. His eyes fixed on the board like it was whispering secrets only he could hear. He started begging to take it home just for a night, then a weekend. I'll bring it back, I swear, he'd plead, his voice desperate, his hands trembling. The board was mine, meant to stay at my house, but I gave in one day against my better judgment. Monday came, and the board didn't. Brian showed up at school looking like a ghost himself, skin pale as bone, eyes sunken with dark rings, fingers twitching like he was still gripping the planchette. Dude, what's wrong with you? I asked, half laughing, expecting a joke. But his eyes locked onto mine, and his voice was low and hollow. It came to my house. I laughed it off, thinking he was just messing with me. Yeah, sure, Brian. What, a ghost trashed your room? But his face didn't crack, didn't soften. Come see for yourself, he said, and something in his voice made my blood run cold. We rode our bikes to his place after school, a few of us, expecting a prank, a setup. But the moment I stepped into his room, my stomach dropped. It was wrecked. His mattress hung half off the bed, sheets tangled like something had clawed through them. Books were strewn across the floor, pages torn and crumpled. His desk was overturned, his posters shredded, and his mirror was shattered, glass shards glinting on the desk like jagged teeth. Worst of all was the closet door. It was covered in scratches, not claw marks, but words, jagged, uneven, carved deep into the wood. Missy, Jacob, Richard. The names of our spirits, etched like a warning. We stood there, silent, the air thick with something oppressive, something that pressed against my chest and made it hard to breathe. Then Brian lifted his shirt. His skin was a map of thin, angry scratches, red lines crisscrossing his stomach, his ribs, his chest, like something had clawed him with needle-sharp fingers. And there, just below his ribs, carved into his flesh, was the word Missy. She did this, he whispered, his voice barely audible. She came last night. She was standing at the foot of my bed, watching me. None of us knew what to say. Even Sam, the biggest skeptic, couldn't explain it. Over the next few weeks, Brian got worse. He was paranoid, jumpy, his eyes darting to corners like he saw things we couldn't. He'd mutter about the board, about voices in the night, about things moving, breaking, changing while he slept. We stopped inviting him to our sessions, stopped using the board altogether. It was too much, too heavy. We told ourselves he was faking it, playing it up for attention. Why else would it only happen to him? But deep down, I wasn't so sure. One afternoon, Brian showed up at my house, wild-eyed and breathless. "Come with me," he said, grabbing my arm. "Right now." I didn't want to go, but his grip was desperate, and I followed. He led me to the woods, where the others were already waiting, the board in the center of a circle, like some dark altar. "One last time," Brian said, his voice shaking. "I need to talk to them." We sat, reluctant, our fingers on the planchette. "Who's here with us?" Brian asked, his voice loud in the too quiet woods. The planchette jerked, spelling Missy so fast it nearly slid off the board. Brian's breath hitched. "What do you want? Why you?" The air grew heavy, the woods silent. No birds, no wind, just a suffocating stillness. Brian started shaking, his fingers trembling. Then his whole body convulsing, jerking like a puppet on frayed strings. His head snapped back, and when he looked up, his eyes weren't his. They were empty, cold, like something else was looking through them. His mouth twisted into a slow, eerie grin. "She's here," he whispered, but the voice wasn't his. It was low, guttural, wrong. Then he pulled out a knife. I don't know where it came from. One second his hands were empty. The next he was gripping a rusty hunting knife, its blade glinting in the fading light. We froze, air thick with panic. He lunged the knife, slashing through the air, missing Sam's face by inches. We screamed, scrambled back, kicking up dirt as we ran, leaving Brian and the board behind in the woods. My heart pounded, my legs burning as I sprinted home and told my parents everything. The board, the names, Brian's obsession, the knife. At first, they didn't believe me, but when we told them about Brian's room, the scratches, the mirror, the cuts on his body, my dad's face hardened. He called Brian's parents and they came over an hour later, looking as haunted as Brian did. They admitted his room was trashed. The knife was real, and there was blood on the blade. Not much, but enough to prove something was wrong. They grounded him, taken everything away, but he denied it all, said we were lying to get him in trouble. The Ouija board was still in his room, untouched, like it was waiting. My dad didn't let me keep the board. He stuffed it into a garbage bag and drove it back to my cousin's house, handing it over without a word. My aunt took it, her face pale, and shoved it back into the closet. I never saw it again. I never played again. Brian was never the same. We didn't talk after that. Didn't even make eye contact at school. He avoided us, acted like we didn't exist. But the only thing that haunts me, The thing that keeps me up at night is that he never asked for the board back. Not once. It's like he knew it wasn't done with him. Or maybe, just maybe, he wasn't done with it. I used to work as a 911 dispatcher. Just saying that sentence still puts a little tightness in my heart. People always talk about first responders, don't they? The cops, the paramedics, fire crews, and don't get me wrong, they deserve all the credit in the world. But what a lot of people don't realize is that before those boots hit the ground, there's somebody behind a desk wearing a headset trying to figure out what the hell is going on from a panicked voice on the other end of a line that was me. It was a job that I respected, and for a while, I even liked it. I felt useful, like a tether between chaos and order, but every single shift was a panic attack waiting to happen. You sit there with the headset glued to your skull, pen in hand, staring at the CAD screen, waiting for that little beep that told you somebody's worst moment had just begun. At that point, I'd taken everything: bar fights, heart attacks, overdoses, high-speed chases, even one guy who found his wife hanging in the garage. That one gutted me, but I held it together. I had to, and I was good at it, but I wouldn't be writing this if I didn't have one to share with you. And this is the call that broke me. It was a rainy Tuesday afternoon. Traffic accidents were flooding in, no pun intended, and the lines were busy but manageable. I was halfway through a protein bar. When the call happened, the beep came in sharp and loud, and I answered just like I always did. 911, what's your emergency? The voice on the other end of the line was a man's. Calm at first, but there was something within it. Something I couldn't quite place yet, but that's what still echoes in my head. When it's real quiet, he told me his name was Leonard. He said it softly, like he wasn't trying to say it out loud anymore. His voice had that old man shake to it, tired and a little breathless, like every word cost him something. I think I'm in trouble, he said. Okay, tell me what's going on, Richard. I went off the road. I was on Riverbend Parkway, just past Milestone Bridge. I hydroplaned. I think I'm in the river. The word river snapped me straight. You're in the car still, sir? Yes, ma'am. I can't get the door open. Are you in the water right now? There was a pause. Yes, it's coming in through the door. I started dispatching immediately. Senate priority, one to both police and fire rescue. Then I put my comments on the one we're trained to use, like we weren't just regular people getting swallowed whole by somebody else's emergency. Okay, Leonard, listen to me. I got help coming, all right? Just stay calm, and I need you to tell me exactly where you are. He rattled off a few landmarks again. I knew the area pretty well, and that part of the river ran fast and cold this time of year. A steep embankment bend from the road down the riverbank, no guardrails. If he slid off, he would go straight into it. Can you see out of your windows? Is it foggy? He replied, the water's halfway up to my legs now. I can't open the door. Okay, don't panic, Leonard. Is there anything in the car that you can use to break a window? A tire iron, a flashlight? He fumbled with something and I could hear it. Metal clinking. His breathing was starting to get ragged. I have a cane. Try using it on the window. Aim for the corner. That's the weakest part. You've got to break the glass, Leonard. A soft whack followed, then another. No shattering noises. Though I muted my mic and shouted for a supervisor. Get eyes on Milestone now. He's sinking. I came back. Leonard, keep trying. Help is on the way. I need you to stay with me, okay? I heard him grunt, and another whack. It's not working. Water's at my chest. It's cold. Ooh, it's so cold. His voice cracked. Then, panic was blooming. I can't breathe. You can, Leonard. Please keep calm and just listen to me. Focus on my voice. He sobbed, once sharp and shameful, like he was embarrassed. Then, in the softest whisper, I don't want to die. My screen updated. A unit was now 2 minutes out. Another was stuck rerouting due to the road closures. Rescue was poured out. I've lived 84 years, he said. I got grandkids, twins, born last spring. I was going to see them next weekend. You will. You still will, Leonard. Just keep working on that window. Do you have a seatbelt cutter? Some kind of tool? No. What about the horn? Hit the horn. Somebody might hear you. I heard him slam his palm down, and muffled horns rang out over the line. He did it again and again and again, until I yelled at him to stop, to save his strength. It's freezing, he whispered. My teeth are shattering. I'm so cold. I can't move my legs. Please, Leonard, do not give up. You're not alone. I'm here with you. There was a long silence, and then he said, They're not going to make it to me, are they? I wanted to lie. I needed to lie, but I couldn't speak. I just stared at the screen, at the little dots, moving in the digital map. I couldn't open my mouth. It's okay, he said. I shook my head, even though he couldn't see me. No, it's not. The sounds changed after that. There was this rushing sound like wind, or maybe it was water moving over something. I heard him gasp, and it echoed through the phone. I pictured it now, water up to his neck, his head pressing up against the roof of the car. I'm scared, he said. Nat did it. I started crying right there. Quiet, so nobody else would notice, but it was too much to. I'd heard people die before, but never like this. Never so slowly. Never begging the call timer. Ticked up 7 minutes. You still with me, Leonard? Still here, he said, barely even audible. I think it's 11. I think it's in my mouth. The background noise changed once more. A bubbling sound came then choking. I sat bolt upright. Leonard. Gurgling was the only sound I got back. In response, Leonard, please say something. A weak cough and another sob. Then nothing. I checked the call time again. 8 minutes. The unit was close. So damn close. I radioed again and told them to hurry, that he was underwater and that we're losing him. Static. and then a garbled reply. En route, river, over. It's really hard to get down. I dropped my head to the desk. Leonard's line was still open. No voice, just water. The sound of it sloshing and whispering, filling every crevice of that little cabin. Then a dull thud followed by silence. I didn't even realize I was shaking until the floor supervisor pulled me off the line and replaced me with someone else. I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. I just sat there with my headset in my lap, staring at the screen, wishing that I'd said something differently, wishing I'd screamed louder and begged harder. Leonard died with his head tilted back, his mouth full of cold black water. And I was the last person that he ever talked to. They pulled him out 20 minutes later. By then, the car had completely vanished below the surface. A fire rescue diver found it snagged against the fallen tree downstream, about 30 yards from where he said he went in. The windows were still intact. His seatbelt was still on. He never stood a chance. I didn't finish that shift that day. I don't even remember leaving the building. I just remember sitting in the break room with my hands wrapped around this lukewarm coffee that I hadn't poured, staring at the beige wall like maybe I could crawl inside and just disappear. They told me I did everything I could. The supervisor even patted my shoulder and said, "You handled that very well." I almost laughed at him. Handled it well? I listened to a man drown. That's really all I did. I just sat there and listened. I stayed on for 2 more weeks. Tried to act normal, to take more calls and pretend like I still was the same person who walked in and put that headset on every single day. But I wasn't not anymore. After Leonard, I couldn't stop hearing him in every voice that came through: panicked parents, stranded drivers, kids calling in accidents. They all blurred into one slow motion nightmare where I was always 5 minutes too late. I finally turned in my paperwork and just walked out. No 2 weeks notice, no goodbye cake or farewell lunch. Just a quiet exit through the side door, like somebody quitting a fast food job that they hated. Now, I work in a library. It's quiet. I shove books and scan barcodes and make small talk with old ladies who don't really know how to use the printer. I still jump when the phone rings. I still wake up gasping sometimes, thinking that I'm trapped in a flooding car that I've never been in. People really don't think about what happens to the person on the other end of that line. They assume that we just hang up and move on, but sometimes we don't. Sometimes the call doesn't end when the beep stops. Sometimes it stays with you. Leonard's voice has stayed. His sobbing has stayed. That final gurgle has stayed. I wish I could forget it. I wished I could go back in time and scream at him to break that goddamn windshield with the gear shifter or rip the seat out, smash it against the glass, anything. But I didn't do that. I told him to keep trying with that damn cane. I told him help was coming. I lied to him. Leonard, Leonard, Leonard. I hope somebody else remembers him besides me, because I will never forget. When I was in my 20s, I lived in a place so grimy it felt like rot had seeped into the bricks. It was called Oak Hollow, and there was nothing hollow about it, just the opposite. The place was full of screams, sirens, shadows that didn't move right. The buildings were squat, sun-baked bricks from the 70s, stacked like prison blocks. Balconies sagged like tired necks. The metal rails poked with rust. The stairwells groaned beneath every step, as if the whole place wanted to collapse on itself and take us all with it. Rent was cheap. That's the only reason I stayed. Cheap rent attracts the kind of people who have nowhere else to go. People who have already lost too much or never had anything to begin with. You don't move to Oak Hollow. You end up there. And once you're in, it's hard to crawl back out. Fights were constant. Screaming echoed off the walls like alleyway opera. I once saw a man get knocked out, cold with a toaster. A literal chrome-plated toaster. People laughed like it was just another Tuesday. Gunshots happened often enough that I stopped ducking when I heard them. The cops came and went like clockwork, flashing lights bouncing off broken windows and dented Chevys. No one talked. No one snitched. No one cared. But the worst part of Oak Hollow? The dogs. No fences, no leashes, no animal control. Just starving, mangy beasts prowling the property like they owned it. Rottweilers, pit bulls, mixes with mouths too big and eyes too human. They weren't pets. They were survivors. Feral, territorial, and always watching. You never made eye contact. You never ran. And you never went to the dumpsters without something heavy in your hand. I carried a crowbar most nights. I worked warehouse nights and came home in the dead hours. Lock the door, crack a beer, controller in hand. Volume up to drown out the chaos, video games, junk food, try not to think about the screaming outside. Until that night. It was a Saturday. I remember the pizza, greasy, burnt, just how I liked it. I had just sat down with it, headset on, verbally demolishing a preteen who was spawn camping me in Call of Duty, when I heard a scream outside. It wasn't the usual kind. It was high-pitched, ragged. There was no anger in it, just panic, pure and sharp. It kept going, rising in volume, clawing its way up the walls like it wanted inside my brain. I set the controller down and went to the window. Down in the courtyard, bathed in the flickering green glow of a dying street lamp, was a woman. She was crawling, or trying to. Her legs dragged uselessly behind her, streaks of blood soaking in the dirt. Her skin looking pale even from the third floor. Then I saw it. The dog. Big, unnatural, blocky head, matted black fur, ribs poking out like fingers from a grave. I swear I could see steam rising off of it, though the night was warm. Its eyes were wrong, too dull, too focused. It was circling her, not barking, not growling, just waiting, like it knew she had nowhere left to go. Then it lunged. Its jaws clamped down on her calf, shaking it like a rag. She screamed like someone had poured boiling water down her throat. I fumbled the window open, screaming, "Hey, get the fuck off of her!" But the dog didn't even flinch. That's when I saw the man. He'd come out of nowhere, maybe from the shadows behind the laundry unit. Short, bulky, wearing a gray hoodie, He was trying to pull the woman toward a nearby car, kicking at the dog, yelling. It turned on him, latched onto his forearm, and ripped. Even from up high, I heard the pop of tearing flesh. I dropped to the floor, scrambled for my phone, dialed 911 with shaky hands. I nearly dropped it before the operator answered. 911, what's your emergency? There's a dog attack. It's bad. 2 people, they're bleeding out. Oak Hollow Apartments, Building C. It's tearing them apart. I tossed the phone on the sill, still connected, and leaned out again. The man was dragging her, hauling her into the car's back seat. She was limp, face smeared with blood. He got her in and reached for the door, but the dog followed. It leapt into the car after her. The sound that came next still haunts me. It was muffled and wet, screaming, struggling, fists slamming against glass. The car rocked violently. I saw the man's hoodie tear down the front as blood splattered the windshield from the inside. I scanned my apartment for a weapon, anything. My eyes landed on the cast iron pan on the stove, still greasy from breakfast. I grabbed it and ran to the back window and aimed. The pan flew end over end and slammed into the dog's skull with a metallic clang. The sound rang out like a funeral bell. The dog jerked sideways, stumbled, and blinked. "Move!" I screamed down at them. The guy didn't hesitate. He dragged the woman out of the car, slamming the door shut, and started hauling her toward the lot exit. But it was slow. Too slow. The dog shook off the blow like it had just woken from a nap. It looked at them. Then it ran. It launched itself into the man's back, dropping them both. The woman's scream this time was something I'll never forget. Deep, raw, like something breaking inside her. The man thrashed, fists flailing as the beast tore into his shoulder. Then, finally, the sirens. Red and blue lights painted the courtyard like a nightmare. A cruiser skidded to a stop. 2 officers bolted out, one with a baton, the other with nothing. They charged in without hesitation. One tackled the dog, dragging it off the man. The other stood between it and the woman, swinging his baton like a madman. Blood sprayed in arcs. The dog fought like a demon, snapping, twisting, refusing to die. Eventually, they subdued it. One cop had it pinned with a knee on its spine, while the other wrapped a rope around its snout. And then, it just stopped. It didn't pass out. It didn't whimper. It just went still, like it had been waiting for that exact moment. Its tongue lolled from its mouth, its eyes glassy, lidless, never blinked. The woman and man were barely alive. She was gashed down to bone on both legs, neck punctured. He had no usable arm left, his face shredded beyond recognition. They both twitched like broken toys. An ambulance came, then another. Animal control finally arrived, 6 hours too late, and about as useful as a screen door on a submarine. They sedated the dog, muzzled it, and dumped it in the back of a cruiser. It bled on the seat, chest rising and falling like a dying machine. I saw one of the officers lean into the front seat of the squad car and mutter something into his radio. 10 minutes later, they drove it away. I found out later it had no chip, no collar, no tags, no owner. It had just been there. a monster simmering in the background of Oak Hollow, waiting to explode. It was euthanized that same night. No charges were filed. There was no investigation. It was like it never had existed. A ghost in a dog's skin. The couple survived, barely. Dozens of surgeries, rehab, scars like zipper tracks. The guy lost most of the use of his left hand. The woman couldn't walk without a brace for almost a year. 6 months later, I moved. I scrapped together enough for a studio apartment across town. Still rough, but it had doors that locked and no dogs. Sometimes I still think about that pan, the way it rang out against that thing's skull, the way its eyes turned up at me, dead but aware. And the thought that keeps me up at night, even now, that dog wasn't just hungry. It was angry, like it knew what we all were in that place. Forgotten, unwanted. It had been kicked enough times to stop flinching. And that night, it bit back. The air in our house had turned rancid long before that night in 2003. Thick, clinging, almost tangible. It had weight. You could taste it on your tongue if you breathed too deep. Something sour had festered in the walls. Not mold, not rot. Something else. The ruin of a marriage. The slow, quiet decay of love curdling into hate. Mark had been my husband for over 15 years, though the man I once knew was long dead, drowned in liquor and sunk by debt. The version that remained was leaner, meaner, and always a little drunk. His temper was no longer sharp. It was jagged, splintered. I used to wonder if I was exaggerating, blaming the booze, blaming stress, blaming bad luck. But the night he slammed me into the kitchen counter, his hand lingering too long around my neck, his eyes cold and unreadable. That was the night my denial died. He didn't hit me, not exactly, but he looked like he wanted to, like he was considering it. You don't come back from that moment. Not really. The next morning, I went straight to a lawyer. When I told Mark it was over, he laughed. Not with humor. He laughed like I was a joke, like he was in on something I wasn't. But when the papers were served, that laughter dried up, turned to poison. He moved out, on paper at least. Found a rental on the other side of the city. But the distance didn't matter. His hatred didn't need a front door to slither through it. It came in late-night voicemails, each more venomous than the last. I'd lie in bed listening to his voice slither through the phone speaker like smoke under the door. Sometimes pleading, sometimes threatening, always wrong. "You think this is over?" He'd whisper like a dare. "You ruined everything, and now you get to play the victim?" Then my tires were slashed. Neatly, surgically. 4 perfect incisions. No mistakes, no hesitation. I filed a restraining order with trembling hands, my name signed in ink that smeared under my sweat. Then one day, Mark disappeared. Just gone. The calls stopped. He wasn't at work. His friends hadn't seen him. No sightings at the bar. No slurred voicemails in the dead of night. For a week, I actually felt relieved. I thought it was all over. But silence has a sound, and his was too quiet. like something holding its breath behind the curtains. I became paranoid. I'd lock the doors, then check them again and again. Each click, a small prayer. The house didn't feel safe. It didn't feel mine. Shadows stretched too far. Creaks came from rooms I wasn't in. I stopped sleeping, stopped eating. I started hearing things, or I thought I did. It happened at 2:11 a.m. A scraping sound, slow and deliberate, like metal dragging against wood. Not the wind, not a branch. Something purposeful. I sat up, breath caught in my throat, ears straining in the dark. Pop. The bedroom door exploded inward, the frame splintering like dry bone. A figure surged forward, massive and fast. Before I could scream, a hand slammed over my mouth, pinning me back. The skin was calloused. The smell, alcohol, sweat, and something sour, hit me like a fist. I kicked and bucked. My knees struck something solid, and the figure grunted, but didn't stop. Plastic zip ties cinched around my wrists, slicing into my skin. My screams were drowned in his palm. I thrashed, gagging, as a foul sock was shoved between my teeth. He moved with precision, no hesitation, like this was practice. He dragged me out of bed, down the hallway, his grip vice tight. A faint nightlight glimmered, catching his face, or rather, mask. A plastic face, blank, featureless, like something bought from a dollar store, smeared with grime and fingerprints. It stared at me with hollow black eyes, its expressionless gaze infinitely more terrifying than rage. This wasn't Mark, or it wasn't just Mark. Outside, the night was still. No wind, no noise, as if the world was holding itself back from interfering. I fought, bit down on the sock. My nails raked his arm. But he didn't flinch. He pulled me toward my car, which sat there, door open like a waiting hearse. He had my keys. He'd been inside. The trunk opened with a groan. He hoisted me up like dead weight and hurled me in. As the lid slammed shut, I caught a glimpse. His wrist, his watch. I knew that watch. I'd bought it for him the Christmas before the world cracked open. Mark. I knew it then. I knew. In the dark, I shook. The gasoline stench from the trunk floor made me gag. Every breath brought me closer to passing out. We drove for what felt like hours. Maybe it was 20 minutes. The car stopped, then silence. The kind that buzzes. Then the trunk popped. I didn't move. He stood there, towering over me. He pulled off the mask, and there he was. Mark, sweating, eyes wide and empty. "You ruined me," he said. "Now I'm going to erase you." Then came the gas can. The cap twisted off with a soft pop. The smell hit like a wave. Cold liquid splashed over me, soaking my hair, my skin, my mouth. He pulled out a lighter. A tiny flame danced between us. I begged. Anything, just to say goodbye. I told him, "Let me call the kids." And something in him paused, like a wire inside snapped taut. He agreed, slowly, pulled out my phone, dialed the number, held it to my ear. It rang. Once. Twice. Then, "Mom?" Our daughter's voice. My throat clenched. "Hi, baby." "You sound weird," she said. "Is something wrong?" "No, I just miss you." "I miss you too," she mumbled. "You're still coming to my game, right?" "Yes, of course. Maybe we can get ice cream after, just us?" "I'd love that," I said, staring into Mark's eyes, daring him to remember that he used to be human. "You should tell Dad to come," she said, voice gentle. "He loves you, you know." Mark blinked. "I know," I whispered. "I know he does." The flame trembled. The lighter clicked shut. He ended the call, and just like that, the thing inside him, the thing, snapped. He cut my ties, drove me home, never said a word. I called the police the moment he was gone. He turned himself in within the hour. 18 months. That's what they gave him. But that's not what haunts me. No. When I got home, I found my phone, still on the kitchen counter, exactly where I'd left it. Untouched, battery drained. No call was made. I checked the history. No outgoing number. No record. Nothing. I had no explanation. But Mark, he heard it too. He looked her in the eye. Through that call, he listened. So if the phone never rang, if it never happened, then who or what was speaking with his voice through hers? And what stopped him? Because I'm not sure it was love. I think something darker intervened, and I don't know if it saved me or if it marked me. Because now when I sleep, I hear her voice again, only it's not quite hers. It's too calm, too slow, like it's waiting. And every time I answer, it gets closer. It was a February night, the kind that grips your bones with a cold that feels almost conscious. Lure County, Colorado, quiet, remote, the sort of place that holds its breath in winter. You don't think about death on a night like that. Not when you're young, dressed in your best, headed to meet the boys at a club to burn away the loneliness in a haze of strobe lights and cheap liquor. I remember how ordinary everything felt. The smell of aftershave still clinging to my skin. The hum of the bathroom fan as I tied my shoes. My breath fogging in the air as I stepped outside. There was nothing unusual. No warning, no shadow over the moon, no whisper in the wind. Just a man, a plan, a stretch of highway, and something waiting for me in the dark. The highway was barely 5 minutes from my place. I took the same on-ramp I always did, tires humming on the cold asphalt. It was nearly deserted, a long black ribbon stretching into nowhere. As I merged into the lane, I caught a glimpse of a police cruiser sitting in the median, headlights off, ghost-like. It faced the wrong direction, the kind of thing you barely register until it's already behind you. That's when it happened. I felt the car jolt. Not a bump, not debris. Something soft, but heavy. Something wrong. It wasn't like hitting an animal. I've hit a raccoon before. It thumps. It's over. This was slower, a shudder that went through the entire chassis, like I'd run over something alive and fragile. For a few seconds, I kept driving, my mind struggling to make sense of the sensation. My hands started to tremble, my stomach twisted. I eased off the gas, heart pounding like a warning drum. And then it hit me. I think I just ran someone over. I veered toward the shoulder, hazards blinking like panic lights in the dark. My SUV rolled to a stop. I sat there, frozen, unable to breathe. My mind started to crack at the edges. I was crying before I even realized it. No control, no breath, just the sound of something primal tearing out of my throat. I wanted to get out. I wanted to drive back. I wanted to undo it. But how do you go back on a highway where traffic barrels past at 80 miles an hour? How do you undo death? So I did what any coward would do. I stayed in the car. I called the police. My voice was shaking so badly they had to ask me to repeat myself 3 times. Then I called 911. I remember the operator's voice, too calm for the gravity of what I was saying. 10 minutes later, I was at the station, still in shock. The fluorescent lights, their buzz like flies. I filled out a report with shaking hands, trying to piece together what happened as if writing it down could make it make sense. I gave it to the woman at the front desk. She didn't look me in the eye. She just said someone would be in touch. Outside, I pulled out my phone. 47 missed messages, 17 missed calls. My friends were wondering where I was. I stared at the names on the screen like they were from another life. I called Bob, told him I wasn't coming, told him why. He didn't say anything at first. Then he just said, "Holy shit, are you okay?" No. I told him I wasn't right, that I needed a few days. He sounded disappointed, maybe even annoyed, but what could he say? What could anyone say? That night, I fell into bed fully dressed. I don't remember dreaming. I don't think I slept. I just existed in that space between memory and madness. A week later, I learned his name. Brent Thompson, 28. He'd been pulled over for expired registration. When the officer ran his info, Brent panicked, gave a fake name, lied, tried to run. He sprinted into the dark and made a desperate final leap onto the interstate. That's where the story should end. But it doesn't. According to the report, official, stamped, buried under layers of cold bureaucracy. The officer tased him on the roadside, tased him as he ran. Brent collapsed, mid-stride, and landed in the center lane like a rag doll dropped by fate. That's when I hit him. I never saw him. Not him, not the officer, not the glint of a badge or the flash of movement in the dark. Nothing. Just a jolt, a thud, and the knowing, deep, marrow deep, that something sacred had been shattered. Brent didn't survive. He was gone before they even pulled him from the asphalt. His family filed a lawsuit against the department, against the officer. His name was Deputy Lorenzo Lawan. The DA ruled it was lawful. No charges, just a few paragraphs in the local news. And then, silent. As for me, they didn't discharge me. No citation, no fine, just a suggestion that I take care of myself. But the punishment didn't need to be legal. It settled inside me like rot. I never drove again. Not once. I deleted my driving apps, let my insurance lapse, sold my SUV for bars. Now, if I need to go anywhere, I call for a ride. I sit in the back seat, silent, watching headlights smear across the windshield like ghosts. And sometimes, late at night, when the road is quiet and the lights stretch long and pale across the dark, I see him again, just for a second. A figure lying motionless on the road, eyes open, mouth twisted in a final gasp, waiting, always waiting. And I wonder, what if it wasn't an accident? What if fate reached out that night, guided my tires like a marionette, like it wanted someone to pay for something? What if that road wasn't empty, but hungry? And that, dear listeners, brings a close to these true scary stories. I would like to take a moment and acknowledge the rest of the members of Back to Ashes. Thank you so much for your continuous support, for without you, I wouldn't have a voice, and this channel would not exist. I appreciate your dedication. If you're new to the channel and you like what you have heard, please leave a like and comment. And if you would like to join the BTA family, please subscribe and make sure you hit that notification bell and set it to all. That way you will be reminded of every time I upload a new video. If you are sleeping, I hope Slumberland is treating you comfortably. If you're awake, I hope you've enjoyed these selections. Until next time, please take care of yourselves and stay vigilant. I'll be reading to you soon. Have yourselves a good morning, a good afternoon, or a good evening. Peace, love, and light to you all.